All right, you're live. You're good to go.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is the second meeting of the Dewey Beach Climate Change Committee. We have an agenda here that prepared for today's meeting. But first, before we do that, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, I guess. So everyone would. Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and justice
for all.
for all.
When we do that, I think you can call this the midsection cam. We get to see everyone's mind on. All right, let me share screen here and show a couple of things here. Screen 2. If everyone can see that, this is our, oops, I have to hit share. There we go. Now I believe it's visible. So this is our agenda for today's meeting. And the roll call, I think we have enough people represented to call it a quorum. We'll skip over having to do individual names here. You've had a chance, I think, by now to see the agenda. Can I have any comments or suggestions about the agenda? And if none, then can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Second, please.
I'll second that.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. We've done the most important thing here. We now know what we're going to do. Okay. Let's see. Meeting minutes. Out here. Meeting minutes from our February 12th meeting here. Everyone's had a chance to review them, I hope. And Bill was unable to attend today, so I'll be responsible for minutes for today's meeting, but these are a combination of notes Phil took and some of mine. And can I have any comment on the meeting minutes from our February 12th meeting?
Move to adopt them and recognize them as accurate.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, very good. Moving right along. Agenda here. There is an opportunity for in each meeting near the beginning of the meeting for public comment. Kate, do we have anyone who's in the queue for public comment at this point?
No one for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. And the next thing is organizational tasks to schedule our next meeting. I think we said we would shoot for about every other month, which would put us into the early part of June. It looks like if we were to go for the second weekend or second Saturday in June, since we'll all likely still be doing this via Zoom, I don't think there's a problem with having to schedule the life-saving station or anything. Would Saturday, June 11th be amenable to everyone on the call? Does anyone have a conflict if we were to go for the morning of June 11th for our next meeting?
I'm good.
I'm okay. That works for me.
Okay. Nobody has a particular conflict at this point. Okay. We'll tentatively schedule it for 10 a.m. on June 11th via Zoom. And I'll check with the folks who aren't here for the meeting today to make sure that's okay for them. We'll tentatively set it for June 11th. Sounds good. Okay. New business. It worked a little bit with Ashley, and we've established a Dropbox location that we can begin to put all of our information that will accumulate for purposes of what we're doing, which, be considerable. On the current page for the, oops, On the current page, Ashley and/or Kate, whoever is maintaining this, had already posted several documents that people have run across. One of the things we'll talk a little bit about shortly here is the stormwater plan that we want to look a little closer at. But this is, only a holding place for a proper repository, because I imagine we'll have, at least a few dozen different documents, and we'll need a way to organize those and manage it, maybe through a series of folders, subject, that kind of thing. But I haven't had a chance to really dig into that yet. I guess once we get enough documents, we'll figure out what the logical way of organizing them will be, and we'll get them posted. Myself and Phil, who's the secretary for the committee, will handle the making sure that the documents are posted so that we kind of keep things organized. And as we walk through this process over the next several meetings, as you have documents that you think need to be placed in the repository, please let us know and share the copies with us, and we'll take it from there. Right? Probably about as much as we can say about this at this point. The second part is how we're going to go about producing the report and doing, what the committee is obligated to do for this committee year. And, I guess we all have a general idea of the things that we'd like to do in this respect. I mean, we have a lot of information we'll be sifting through, some of which are, information people are reporting back today, and we'll continue to do that. But, I guess pretty soon here, we'll have to figure out how we want to organize say a table of contents for our document for what we'll produce here. And so what I would suggest we do is I'll take a run at a first draft of a table of contents for that document and share it with the group, and we'll get some feedback and, kind of try to finalize that in our next meeting. Make sure that we've got at least that much of an outline of how we want to organize our thoughts and produce a report. Make sense?
Sounds good.
Now, there are a couple of, follow-up assignments for people to reach out. Marty, I know Phil couldn't be here today, and so hopefully you can give us some feedback on the discussions you've had with the, various organizations and Center for Inland Bays and so forth.
I can do that.
You want me to switch back to stop the share for the time being so we can just see you? Okay.
You want me to start?
Sure, please.
Okay. Phil Winkler and I met with staff at CIB on March 1st. We met with Michelle Schmidt, who is the watershed coordinator, and Avaya Stillman, who is her assistant. We discussed the organizations that they work with when they are trying to secure funding for various projects. They work with the Sussex County Association of Towns, which I hadn't heard of before, FEMA, Corps of Engineers, DelDOT. DelDOT apparently has a new resiliency section and coastal resiliency grants in general. The main issue when they are trying to secure funding from any of these organizations is that each organization has their own detailed procedures, which is not surprising, but it requires then CIB to adapt whatever their plan is to try to meet the specifications of those various organizations before the money can be granted and awarded. So that creates an ongoing challenge that CIB or any organization would experience if they were trying to apply for a grant. The source of flooding is certainly well known and acknowledged by CIB. They acknowledge that, Bayside of Dewey from Dagsworthy to Collins is a vulnerable area. We all received the 2017 Stormwater Master Plan this week, and that's been in existence for a while and has been used by CIB for applying for things. they have talked about the issue of flooding, and the next kind of phase being the area of McKinley Hayden and Dagsworthy, and doing similar things to what had happened on the Reed Avenue end to try to address mitigation and adaptation. They talked about their last plan had a boardwalk proposed going from the North Beach parking lot into a residential area. And that was pretty unpopular with the residents in the residential area, because they were not fond of the idea of patrons from North Beach going across the boardwalk after hours and dumping into the neighborhood. So that CID understands that that was not popular and would not be something they would continue to pursue.
Marty, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Is that
Sure.
the extended bay walk that I
It
saw?
was the extended bay walk. You know, as I recall, I think that extended bay walk was not something that the North Beach was looking for either, because I think it would run in front of their property. So that was, you know, I don't know exactly how, I don't remember how it looked, but there was a boardwalk proposed across the marsh. And, you know, at the time, even before considering who was going to be using the boardwalk or who had the potential for using the boardwalk, it seemed like putting a structure in the middle of the marsh was not such a great idea either, that it would be disturbing a natural resource. And it was something that we discussed with CIB is, you know, that marsh is a natural resource that the town of Dewey Beach has, and we ought to be respecting it, using it appropriately. So that's, I think the most enlightening thing, and probably not surprising for me, was that how difficult it is for them to apply for these grants. That 2017 master plan is voluminous and it has incredible detail. But then every time they have to submit it to secure any kind of funding, you know, they have to adapt it to fit whatever the organization is looking for at that particular time. So it, you know, they have quite a job.
Makes sense.
I believe that covers, you know, what we were able to glean. It's a nice conversation with them, and, you know, they're very supportive, and they have been a good partner in the past with the town, and I know they will continue to be a good partner with us.
Right. Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that the overall document here represents a lot of good work that was done, you know, albeit, I guess, close to 5 years ago now. But they do say, and if you can see the screen here, the project took a two-pronged approach: innovative stormwater, I guess, business, best management practices, and living shoreline techniques. What I got from this is the living shoreline techniques, including not only a dune, but also some buildups that, you know, help raise the, you know, the barrier to flooding is, you know, perhaps the, you know, the current best way of looking at this and thinking about it. And of course, there's lots of appendices in here that make it 610 pages, but even the little bit at the beginning where there's, you know, information about just, you know, the nature of the problem and some statistics, you know, pretty heady reading, pretty technical stuff, not all of which I understood either. So there are, yeah, go ahead, Mary.
You know, that she went on to say in a subsequent email to us that the living shoreline would be protected by a combination of the oyster shell bags and realignment, existing riprap. Existing marsh would be preserved and expanded through fill material and marsh plantings. An existing dune would be enhanced and raised to 3.5 feet by stabilizing the sand using HESCO flood barriers. which are similar to three-sided sandbags that can be planted on the top and then planting the dunes. So, they have a good plan. It's, I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. I think they're the experts, and they understand the kinds of things that will help to mitigate and adapt our town to, this crisis that we're going to experience. So, it's just a matter of, using what we have to apply for what we need.
You bet. And the stormwater issues that we're currently dealing with and the future work on that, and the stormwater runoff. And then also the protection against the flooding that they've outlined. It sounds like a pretty good 1-2 punch for, ensuring that we do the best we can. Any comments on what Marty has talked about and presented?
Yeah, I think it's a great organization. Every year we do a fundraiser for them. I know they're, and also if you read the stormwater plan, I know they really emphasized water quality and achieving better water quality within that plan. And a lot of that is with the living shoreline and the plantings and that type of thing. I think one of the most important things Marty just said at the end is the berm. I believe they have to raise that, in trying to keep the tidal surges down. And hopefully that would be a big part of the plan. I hope that would be my only input on that. But yeah, that to me is a really critical thing.
True.
Yeah.
You're correct. Certainly their primary focus has been water quality, but I think over time they have evolved as well to recognizing exactly what you said, that there's a desperate need, not just in Dewey Beach, but in coastal towns, with how we protect our towns and our properties. So I think they're trying to kind of do both water quality while, helping us. But I think that it's becoming more of a dual purpose rather than single.
Yeah, I hope so, because I kind of felt like the Reed Street project, there was a lot more focus spent on water quality than maybe alleviating the flooding. Just my opinion, but I'm a huge supporter of the organization, and we work every year for a fundraiser for them. So I think they're doing a great job. So that's great news to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have the benefit of all the good work they've already done. Marty, I think it's interesting in what you said, which we will be facing too, which is as we begin to, through the town begins to apply for funds to various sources for helping with, the cost of all of the things we expect to need to do. There's going to be a lot of work involved in, multiple different formats, collecting additional information for each one. It's not a small task, that's for sure.
Can I offer one more comment about grants? I have some experience from the education standpoint applying for grants, and grants love to see their words put back to them. So when you're applying for a grant, if you say what they want to hear, you're more likely to get the grant. And so finding a way to get what you want in their words is kind of a nice strategy. So I'm sure other grant writers, and I'm not saying I want to help write a grant at all, but I'm just saying that's a technique that I have seen, helped my schools to get, $500,000 in grant money.
You bet. Since Bill isn't here, Gary, I was going to ask, are you aware of what our process is for applying for grants? Is it all written by the folks in town hall, or are we working with any grant writers who, have experience and expertise in that?
The town does have an outside grant writer that they're working with, but I think the town staff are becoming more adept, as they do more and more grants. I think they're really developing some expertise in this. And there are, at least 3 or 4 different possibilities that we talked about last night. Ashley is really the point person, I think, for this. Kate may be involved in it as well, but I think Ashley's really the point person to talk to there. Again, I think the effort the town is undertaking, and I said this last night at the end of the meeting, that the effort they're taking with respect to grant writing is really been ramped up. It's a really good effort, and I think we're going to have some good success from some of the efforts that they're putting forth now.
Mhm. Makes sense. Which is a good segue into the second report back, Stacy and Drew. I guess Stacy isn't on the call today. Drew, if you're prepared, can you give us a recap of what you found in looking at potential funding sources?
So what happened with that is I reached out to Bill, and I was hoping he was going to be there today on the meeting. And Bill, because we were going to reach out to the person that's working with the town that is already applying for some grants. Evidently, there's someone, Gary. I'm not sure who that is.
There is. I don't have the name either, but there is an outside.
Yeah.
grant writer.
And he, we don't want to duplicate what she's doing. So the plan was or him, I'm not sure if it's her or him. They were going to be on the meeting today with us and Bill. And then we were going to discuss it further. She could tell us the ones that she's working on. And then Stacy and I could research other ones that might be available. But he wanted her to come to this meeting and let us know before we did that. So that's kind of where we stand on looking for grants at the minute.
Okay,
So probably since he or she wasn't able to, maybe Stacy and I can follow up with Bill and maybe do a quick meeting with her, or maybe she can provide him with a list of what she's working on.
Yep.
And then we can go forward and search for some other ones. But
Okay.
the whole point was not to duplicate exactly what she's doing.
Okay.
Or make a presentation to you and say, hey, we found this, we found that, and she's already working on it. So that's kind of where we stand on that one.
I think
Would
we're,
it be helpful to ask her to attend the June 11th meeting?
That would be great. I mean, I think he was trying to get her to attend this meeting, and I don't know where that stands. So if she can, great. If not, I think it'd be important for us to follow up with Bill and her after this meeting next week and get a list from her of where what she's working on. And then we can find other ones that she's not, or, if the town, I don't know, Gary, if the town is paying her for her services, I want to work with her. That would be the smartest thing to do. So.
Yeah, I agree. It's too bad we don't have more information about this for the meeting today. I don't know what the arrangement is with the outside grant writer, but I know they are working on a variety of possibilities, state, state grant opportunities as well as federal. There are a couple of big federal grant opportunities that we're trying to direct toward the cost of building a new town hall, which would relieve a lot of pressure on many other things.
Mhm. Let's do this. Understand that, we're not quite where we would like to be on identifying this, but if you and Stacy can get together with Bill and the grant writing person, in between now and June 11th, and document not only what they can provide you, but then plug some holes for additional sources and come back to us. You can send me the, I guess you can send it to me and then I have to direct it out to the folks, we get a list and we'll review that in a little more detail. If you can just use that as a guide for June 11th, we'll see if we can.
Absolutely. It's no problem. We're happy to do the work and find it and see what's available. Just don't want to duplicate what somebody's potentially getting paid to do.
If this is what they do, they probably are a good source to start with, and there's no reason to. But I think there's also probably some outside of whatever their purview is that we can probably locate at a state and county level. I'm sure they're not necessarily involved in every possible grant outlet here. So, okay.
Yeah,
So
and I'd like to add one thing, a thought. when you're looking at the storm water master plan, and I know Marty, we've been involved in some infrastructure meetings when we're talking about all the new pipes they're installing, how much money we're spending, the town is spending putting this new drainage in. And if you notice in that plan, CIB talks quite a bit about the amount of garbage that's going into these pipes. And I was hoping Bill again would be here, because that's a big thing with Bill, which is great. He does a fantastic job. Last summer, he got out more garbage cans than in the past during the busy season to try to get people to put trash in the cans and not dump it on the street, because we all know where it goes. It goes into the drains, goes into the pipes, which clogs the pipes up. So as a committee, I don't know if it would fall under what we do, would be to possibly look at ways, whether it be signage or trying to get volunteers to assign to handle a street to clean up trash just on their street. I think signage would be a good thing. I know when I was growing up, I date myself, but I remember the commercial they had with the Indian who was crying in the landfill as he was walking through. It was in the mid-70s, and it was a big impact. People that went along. I remember it to this day, but I think it helped with people at that point in time. I think everybody just threw their trash out the window when they're driving down the road, and I think it made an impact. So I'm not sure if that's something we want to look at, to work with Bill on ways to cut down on the amount of trash that's on the streets, that's going into the drains, because that affects the lifespan of all this new drainage that we're putting in.
All the infrastructure, right?
Yep. As it backs up, then it's not working properly, and it's plastic. It's going to be in there forever. So anyway, that's just a thought. I just wanted to throw in at the end.
Also, I add one more thing. This is Stacy. I agree with that immensely. And I've noticed with all the new construction that's going on, new building and whatnot, there's a lot of trash around new construction. A lot. I'm on Clayton Street. There's 2 houses going up beach side, and I walk down the street and there's like a roll of plastic flying down into the ocean from that location. I would love to see something about fines for trash, and monitoring also new construction sites. And if you have a permit for something, that your spot better be cleaned up before your project is finished. It's just ridiculous how much trash there is around new construction.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd like to add something about what has just been said as well. And I wish Bill was on today, because we've had a piece of equipment on McKinley and Reed and on various streets that was sucking out those drains in the last couple of weeks, and not just one half day. I mean, they really worked at trying to clear drains. And I don't know if they're also part of the group that's trying to run cameras into the pipes on McKinley or what, and I think it was DelDOT, but they were here for several days. They were on Reed, they were on McKinley. I saw them throughout the town when I was walking. So right now our drains are probably as clear as they have been. So it would be an opportune time to make sure we start to address the trash situation. And, I pick up on McKinley and Hayden all the time, whether it's neighbors or whether it's, somebody in the town who assumes some responsibility, but, they've got so many other things that they're doing. Also, the trash cans, if the trash cans were maybe more easily accessible, somehow lifting the lid seems to be too hard. Maybe if there was a trash can with a hole in the middle, so that when the trash can flew over because of high wind or whatever, it didn't empty on the street. That's another idea that the town might want to consider. I don't know how you have a can that is easy for the regular people and still easy for the trash company to open and empty. I don't understand that. But, I don't know if there is such a can.
Let me make a suggestion here. All good commentary and good feedback. Let me do another screen share here for just a second. Oh, I'm already there. Here is, just as a point of context, there's actually a page that Dawn has put up here. Town has put up, Dawn gave the input on the how to deal with flooding and flood information, including, all the to-dos that people ought to consider and be ready in the event of something happening. And then it goes on, and down here, there's a bunch of good, helpful links. I think, we could try to do sort of the same thing. I view this, we're going to make recommendations in whatever report we generate, but we're also going to probably suggest that there be some education given to the public and the town visitors, right? So that, we can avoid as much of this kind of thing as possible. Doing information like this, where it's, kind of a best management practice that we can put out and, is worded to be something that the typical town visitor could, understand and comprehend easily, would be a good part of that. And also to work with Dawn and doing some of the things that I think, Drew, you and Marty suggested, to help be proactive, right? I think that's our goal, is to try to get out in front of some of that kind of thing, especially now with the season about to begin. So why don't we plan to talk with Bill about this, and maybe a meeting with Dawn about this as well, to see, what their thoughts are on what can be done to be a little more proactive about this. That sound like a reasonable path forward here?
Yeah, absolutely. I know the town doesn't have the resources, the labor to send people out picking up trash. And I'm just going to use during the summer season, the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the worst. And so it has to be residents taking responsibility, whether you assign, let's just say, for lack of a better word, a captain for each street that's going to volunteer for that year. I'd say, okay, I'm going to be captain of Reed Street for this year. I'm just going to go out there on a Friday morning, Saturday morning, just walk up the street, pick up the trash. It doesn't take very long. But along with that, the businesses have to be responsible for the trash out in front of their business. They have to be, whether it be Grottos, or I think the Starboard does a fantastic job of cleaning up. But there's a couple other ones that you walk out in the morning and there's trash out in front of everything from their patrons. And that's just something that they have to take responsibility for as well. So it has to be a lot of personal responsibility to go around. And like Stacy said, I think there definitely needs to be a little bit more emphasis put on contractors to cover the dumpsters and cover the roll-offs, so the trash isn't blowing out of them. Because right now, I don't know if that's a regulation, but they really need covers on them some way. I know in some places they require that, so you don't have that situation where stuff is just blowing out of the top of the roll-off, which is happening here on Reed. All the work they're doing on Reed, it just blows right out and blows down the street. So I'm not a big fan of putting more regulations on businesses and things like that at all. But I'm not sure how to get around that other than everybody taking personal responsibility. So
yeah, it's a multifaceted, problem to solve. And I think, I'm sure Bill and Dawn will be, motivated to try to take a little more proactive approach, both with the businesses and with the visitors, right? Or the town attendees. So
If I might just make one comment on that. Around here, the scout troops will take on a street as a project to keep it clean, and they'll plant flowers or whatever. And I wonder if there's a scout troop that might be willing to take that on.
that'd be great.
certainly something that we can investigate. I think it's really Bill's probably, jurisdiction to come up with the best way to solve the problem, but we'll at least raise the issue to them. I'll point him to the, 5 or 10 minutes we've discussed this during the meeting and ask him to, kind of review that and give us his thoughts, in the meantime. Sound good? All good discussion. All right, let me switch over now. And I think the third report back is for Deborah and myself on what we found out. Let me, if I can, Deborah, just do a quick one. I reached out to both the folks in Rehoboth and in Lewis. I did actually speak to one of the members of their executive committee on resiliency, as they refer to it in Rehoboth. And what he told me is they're very early in the process, but they're pretty much going by the same document that we've, kind of adopted here, the Center for Inland Bays, documentation and the kind of information that's already been done out there. I have not heard back. I reached out a couple of times to some folks in Lewis, and as of today, haven't heard back from anyone, but I will still try to close that loop. I get the sense, though, that they're much in the same boat, and they're really just at the beginning of this process and trying to figure out how to get their arms around it, much as we are. So there's nothing earth-shattering other than what we've already found in doing the research we've all done, which is there's a lot of groundwork that's been done. We can utilize much of it. It's just a matter of how we're going to organize it and push forward. And we'll maintain the relationships with Rehoboth and Lewis and some other towns we'll be in contact with in order to make sure that if they come upon some kind of solution or mechanism to follow through, that we have the benefit of knowing about that as well and can make use of it. We'll share information. So, Deborah, you want to give a quick report on your background?
I didn't want to repeat what work Dave had already done, so I tried to reach out to various entities that were doing this kind of work up and down the East Coast. And what I came to appreciate is that pretty much in every county in Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and the DC area where I live in general, they all have a resiliency plan that they're working with, a climate adaptation committee, and a flood risk reduction committee. I unfortunately have reached out to, I can't begin to tell you how many people, and I can't get people to respond back to me once I get to the actual person. UNC is doing extensive research in the Outer Banks and up and down the East Coast up until Virginia Beach. I tried reaching out to people at Virginia Beach. I wasn't getting very far. I actually was getting a little closer to finding the people doing the actual research with groups that are doing research at the Potomac River area. And I learned that in Northern Virginia and Alexandria, of course, Old Town Alexandria has had a flooding problem, if you're not familiar with it, forever. And so it's an ongoing issue. But in the outlying counties, I live in Fairfax County, Virginia, I was surprised to learn that they see that the flooding issues are a growing concern, not as imminently a risk as Dewey, but they're still trying to do work on this area. So I have been trying to reach out to various people up and down the coast to get to people that are actually doing the work and starting to implement it. And it appears that there are places that are more advanced, if you will, than our committee, or what Dave has indicated has happened in Rehoboth and perhaps Lewis. But unfortunately, I have yet to get to actual people with actual information, but I'm continuing to follow up.
Sounds great. And, we'll do the same as we asked for Drew and Stacy to do in, kind of continuing the process to get the information and come back to us in the June 11th meeting. We'll continue on that front as well for Deborah and I to try to close that circle. I think, Deborah, as you said, there's a lot more that's probably been done that if we can just get access to it, that, we can learn from previous good efforts. Did you say that they have 3 specific committees? I I think you identified 3 individuals.
So, pardon me, I have notes all over here. Yes. So I've learned of different committees and I'm reading from my notes. There's a resilient Fairfax there, but Fairfax County has a separate climate adaptation and a separate resiliency plan. And then separate areas have a flood risk reduction and a committee on urban flooding. Now, I have not been able to ascertain why there would be 2 different groups on that.
Right.
So I'm still trying to understand because I would have thought all of these would be the same things, but there seems to be groups with similar names in each county and town that I'm contacting. Apparently Virginia Beach and the Norfolk area have done a lot of work on this, and they have been doing it for a very long time. I also learned that there is a committee in Virginia Beach called the Sea Level Rise Committee. And there's something that they have referred me to called Wetlands Watch. But unfortunately, I've gotten a lot of names and I haven't gotten actual information, but I'm continuing to follow up. And now at least I know the names of the committees so that I can try to figure out what I need to do with that. But it appears that at least in Virginia, Maryland, and the DC area, that there are committees with these various names. But I really believe that if I could actually tap into the people at UNC, which have been doing extensive research in this area up and down the East Coast, that they may be in touch with all these people, but I can't get anybody yet to return my calls.
Sounds like between UNC and maybe the folks in Virginia Beach, you've got probably a good, a good series of people if you can land the discussions to get good information. Okay, great. And as I said, we'll continue to foster that process. One more thing along these lines. There is an upcoming seminar that's being offered on May 6th, Friday in Dover. And I asked on behalf of the committee, I can't attend, I'll be at a family wedding away that weekend. But I asked if Phil Winkler could attend, he's checking. Maybe you'd like to get one other of the members of the committee who might like to attend. I think the town, Bill, I think indicated that if the $55 cost for the seminar would be handled by the town and perhaps even mileage costs to go up to Dover. So anyone have a particular interest and think they might be available to attend this, it's 9 a.m. to noon on Friday the 6th. I'd like to get at least one more committee member that might be able to attend. Any volunteers?
I can check my calendar. Unfortunately, I don't have my work calendar on me today. But if I'm not already scheduled for court, I can try to make that work if I can make it like a day trip.
Dave, if I may, I did this same session about 3 or 4 years ago, pre-pandemic certainly. It's a really good session. They have some very good people there. And one of the benefits you get from being part of this is you get to talk to other representatives of communities in Delaware. You can hear the kinds of problems that they're struggling with. I think on the agenda, there are probably a couple of towns that will be presenting the things that they have done in terms of sea level rise and resilience and preventing flooding. So, if anybody can attend, I really would urge you. I think it would be a very valuable session. And you'll probably get a lot of good context from that as well.
Okay. In the event that Deborah can't go, can I have one other backup person who might be able to make that? Anybody?
I have a couple of things that I would have to reschedule, but I can try and make that happen. I just can't fully commit 100%.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we say, Deborah, if you can check your schedule and let Stacy and me know, we just try to have at least one of the two of you able to attend. I think as Gary said, this could be a good opportunity not only to hear what people are doing, but also meet some of the folks face to face and get into a deeper discussion. So Phil is probably going to attend. If we can get 2 people out of the committee, I think that would be great. I'm sorry, I just can't do it that weekend. And I suspect that Bill will be probably sending at least one person from the town, whoever that may be. So we'll have representation at some level, I'm sure. Okay, sounds good. Last topic here, and I just left this for a free for all. We kind of, just leave an opportunity for us to talk a little further. We've got path forwards on, continuing the work on the collecting information front at this point, but anybody have any suggestions and ideas that they'd like to throw out for general discussion about, our overall approach here, and our strategy and the way we're going about this? Anyone like to make any comments?
Dave, if I could make a comment. I would hope at some point the committee will begin to think about the policies in town, and the extent to which property owners can do some things on their own to begin to manage the risks of sea level rise and stormwater management. Just as a simple example, there are some requirements. There's still a lot of new construction going on in town. And there are some standards that construction needs to meet if you're in a flood zone. And one of the things that we do is there's a requirement for a certain amount of distance, I guess, between the ground and the first level of the building. One of the simple strategies that I know a number of places have adopted is simply to increase what's known as freeboard. It's just an additional amount of height that you would add to your property, so that you can have a longer term mitigation strategy for the risk of flooding.
Right.
What that does, though, is as you consider that, is it bumps potentially into some of the height limitations within town. So, that's just one example. But I would hope again that the committee can think about some of those policies, think about what is possible over the long term, what the value of some of the changes in some of these policies might be. And so that could be part of your recommendations then that would go back through the town for consideration and possible change even to the town code.
Right. Okay. Good suggestion. I think it's all about education and then enforcement, right? In the case of policies and procedures that we put into place. And I think we all understand that, educating the public, the property owners, the businesses on how to, do their part is going to be part of this effort, right? Yep, makes good sense. Anybody else? Oh, I was looking through the document here in the stormwater management. There is a section here that talks about the, keeping or maintaining the freeboard distance and so forth that I just couldn't find on the fly while Gary was talking about that. But yeah, there's been a lot of discussion in the last few years about that issue of, how much should you raise and how much can you raise and that kind of thing. Anyone else would like to make any further comments? Rich, we haven't heard much from you. You want to chime in a little bit here?
Yeah, I'm just, listening through the whole process. The code side of it is the changes that are going to be required in the next 30, 40 years in the code is something that is going to be the lifeblood, I think, of protecting properties. And getting, I went through the building process 4 years ago, and it was a challenging situation. But the reality of it is that we're going to struggle with height restrictions against what people want to do versus what they can do. And that's going to be a fight that goes on forever, because as property values go up and people's investments in their properties go up, people want to do more, they want to be less restricted. So, but no, I'm just trying to get a handle on for me personally, I hear a lot about funding is a big issue. I don't really have full understanding of the city's or the town's budget and where their money comes from. but it sounds to me that there should be some opportunities. And nobody likes to raise taxes, but at some point in time, we're going to have to raise taxes in the town, either from an indirect standpoint, meaning increasing rental income. If we have a garbage issue because of everybody coming into town because they're vacationing in our town, then there has to be a vehicle as part of in my assumption, and there has to be a tax to support the cleanup that's going to have to occur. So right now, I guess there's a 3% rental tax that goes on in the town. And if that's not enough, then we have to consider, I just came back from a place and I was charged 18%. So people are going to pay the tax. So my big concern is how are we going to generate the revenue to do some of the things that we need to do? Is beach replenishment costs the fees that we pay to have beach replenishment, is that going to be help supportive on the bay side? Is that one and the same? Or should it be a more encompassed thing that we're generating those fees so that we can, because no matter what the grant is, we're going to have to support it some way. The town's going to have to support it some way with its matching revenue or whatever. So it's an inevitable situation that the town's going to eventually have to come up with its own money on a yearly basis to help support some of these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good points. On that front there, we've, over the course of the last several years, and I was in budget and finance for a number of years, there was a lot of discussion about, new significant revenue sources for the town. And, the priority list there, you always list, real estate tax, but, the reality of it is, or property tax, but the reality of it is that's, hard to get enacted. And, there's good reason that if we can maintain other revenue sources, not to necessarily go there. One of the things we did talk about is then the beach tax only is usable on the beach side of things, not for the bay. We did have some discussion about implementing sort of a bay/infrastructure tax that would, be comparable to the beach tax. And the beach tax fund, I think, the last I saw, has over $5 million in it. It's been accumulated over the years. And we certainly will need, as you said, to kick in and not rely solely on grants for all the many millions of dollars we'll need to do to really, resolve the problem. But a bay infrastructure tax might be one way of addressing some of that, where it's a very clear-cut, focused purpose for the money that's collected, and it wouldn't break anyone's bank by doing it.
And I look at things from the perspective of, I'm a believer kind of in the use tax scenario. So my view on it is if somebody comes into our community and is going to vacation in our community and they're going to spend money, and the reality of it is it's not the local people that live here every day that's creating the garbage situation. Mm-hmm. It's the vacationers that are coming into town are the ones that are creating the problem. And it's not a problem. It's just we have to create a solution for that problem of trash. So my view on it is you're going to have to create some form of a use tax, meaning either if the 3% is only going so far and we have to raise it to 4 to generate additional funding so that we can put 50 more trash cans and have somebody to come in and clean them up on a daily basis, like they do the boardwalk in Rehoboth, then that's a direction that we have to take. I was a Boy Scout. I did a lot of really good things, but at the end of the day, that isn't enough to take care of a town. And it's got to be, it can't be a full volunteer situation. It has to be something that's built into the structure of the town so that it can get done on a regular basis. So the guys come in, their responsibility for the day, just like they do. The trash guys go up through the boardwalk, they come in, they go to the garbage cans, they replace it on, on the heavy days of the week. And that's how we're going to have to, to avoid some of the other issues that we've got.
Yep.
At least
Yeah,
that's my feeling on it.
Yeah, just to add one more thing, I wish Bill was here because he would be able to really dive into this. But we also have those people that come into town and produce a lot of trash, and then they dump that trash in our general trash cans.
Yep.
And there used to be a Bayard trash can, and that's where I walk my dog, and that's where I pick up all the trash that people leave from behind. So as
Sure.
people come into town, either parking their cars, if they have been drinking anything, they just dump it. And now that there's so many people that I don't know if it's in Dewey or not in Dewey, but tons of trash bags would be put inside the trash bin. And so it's been removed. It's not even there anymore. So, and as we've had all of our flooding in Bayard Street from the bay, all that trash gets sucked into those drains. So
Yeah.
it's a big, I think the trash problem is bigger than just what we're talking about here. I'm
Correct.
sure Bill could probably provide a lot more information on it, but yeah, to your point, I agree. The Boy Scouts, probably as sweet as they would be doing, I think it's probably something that needs to be managed a little bit differently. And I do believe in what we were talking about earlier with, cleaning up the streets does make an issue to the bay water. So if you have runoff that's going into the bay, and in any storm, you can see it at the end of our marshes, there's a lot of trash that gets, dumped into our bay. So we gotta, if we can make an effort to at least clean what we can manage, I do believe that would make a difference and help the water quality, if you will, as well.
Sure.
Okay.
Hey, Dave,
Yes.
a couple of points. With respect to financial resources, I think the town really has sharpened its focus on the long-term need for increasing its revenue sources. And as you pointed out, Dave, you had a lot to do with that when you chaired the Budget and Finance Committee. We do have a new hotel tax, half of which goes to capital improvements. So we've really sharpened the focus on two areas: infrastructure needs and capital improvements. And we're trying to look more long-term. We also added, I think 20% of building permits goes to an infrastructure fund. We also added to that a certain percentage of the parking revenues that come in each year. There is some consideration of having a referendum this fall for increasing the amount of the accommodations tax. Don't know how much that increase might be. We haven't really talked about that yet, but I think the point is that, there is a lot of focus at the town council level on the long-term need for increasing our financial resources. And we just need to keep up that effort and to sharpen our focus as much as possible.
You bet. And Rich, Gary's, been a part of the budget and finance process for quite a while. You might want to check in with some of the members and committees, what they've been doing in that regard. I mean, there has been a lot of work done on revenue sources.
And that's from my perspective, that's a good thing. And it is, if we like it or not, everything takes money. And I'm just one of those. One of the things there's the big and the long-term capital side of things, and then there's the daily grind that the town goes through on a basis between basically April 15th now and October 15th, where there's an accommodation that has to occur to make sure that the town is straight and clean and all of the things that go along with that. And that has to be funded. The funding for that has to come, I would assume, out of the general budget, but it really has to be sourced from what is driving it, which to me is the accommodation.
Yep, well, and there has been progress made on that front, keeping the town clean and, in better shape. There has been progress made, but we all understand, like everything else, there's more work that can be done.
Has to be done. Correct.
And policies and procedures put in place with,
Mhm.
hammer, carrot and stick kind of approach. So, okay, anyone else like to make any comments before we adjourn for today? Okay.
Just one comment, Dave.
Sure, Marty.
I don't think we can count on a Boy Scout troop because we really don't have any children in Dewey Beach. And the children we do have are of varying ages. So I don't think we can count on a Boy Scout troop from Rehoboth or, somewhere else in Sussex County coming in here on a regular basis. They might come in one time for a project, but that's not something that we can count on because we really don't have that kind of base.
Sure. And, we need the recurring and the regular maintenance kind of thing, right? It has to be an ongoing process, but lots of good ideas. All will be sorted out. Bill's really the guy who will, spearhead this whole process and will make sure that we raise the issues to him appropriately. I'll send out meeting notes in a day or two and see everyone on June 11th. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
I second.
All in favor? Everyone have a good day.